Alright, hello and welcome everybody to Social Democracy Petrograd 1917. A next game made by the developers that made Social Democracy an alternate history game. And let's get going. Start game. Alright, let's see what this says. Before that, let's check. So we have library, safe flow options. We have main, politics, government, and defense economy. Let's keep that. We have single player, so we have easy, no more hard, and local multiplayer has not been implemented yet. So let's check the status. So week 1, March 1917, party Menshevik position, Soviet Executive Committee, party resources available to internal dissent law. Damn, we don't have enough resources to do a lot of things, so we basically are tight on money. Internal, alright, so provisional government, Prime Minister Lebov. Okay, I'm gonna butcher a lot this name because I don't speak Russian. Independent, budget zero. Constituent Assembly elections, no schedule, economy society. She's inflation is sure is hard in the economy. The unemployment is a lot better and gonna get called the hunger chancellor, supposedly like the German hunger chancellor Browning from the other game. This is gonna be Lebov the hunger chancellor. Okay, war weirdness is medium. I forgot that we were still in a war. The politics are inter-party relationships. So the Bolsheviks, the party that basically ruled the Soviet Union post-Civil War. Then the rest is history. The SRs, I don't know who the SR are. There's the cadets who are neutral and the others are warm. Internal factions, social patriotism, medium strength weak. Revolutionary defenses, dissent low, strength dominant, internal, dissent high, strength moderate. Mentioned party oppositions, provisional government policy, labor policy, trade unions, war policy, revolutionary defenses, government. Provisional government, Prime Minister Lebov, independent Lebov, he's the Prime Minister and the Interior Minister. Huh, that's interesting. So we have an independent in two positions, one person. Foreign Minister is Milukov, he's a cadet. Foreign Minister is Kushkov, he's an Octoberist. Finance Minister is Tereshchenko, independent. Justice Minister Kerensky, Trutovik, Agriculture Minister Shingarev, he's a cadet. Transport Minister Nekrasov, Industry and Trade Minister Kanotov Balov. Okay, there's Konovalov, but of course I don't know the language, so it's gonna be butchering a lot of these names. Education Minister Oldenburg Cadet. I didn't know there was a city playing as the education minister. Oh well. Provisional government and efficacy medium high. Provisional government legitimacy very high. Petrograd Soviet clear. Shekhesev always let's just call him C because there's no way I'm pronouncing that. He's a Menshevik, so Mensheviks SRs. Overall position, Mensheviks consider 40%. Bolsheviks are 9, SRs are 33, anarchists 0. Soviet efficacy is medium and Soviet provisional government medium high. Defense. Armies and Front, Northern Front 100 divisions, Western Front 100 divisions, Southwestern Front 200 divisions, Romanian Front 100 divisions, and Caucasus Front 50 divisions. Garrisons are reserved 100 divisions. We could take 50 divisions off and put it onto the Caucasus Front. Moral medium, discipline medium. Yeah, the discipline has to be fixed. The morale, the discipline, and the supply quality, that has to be fixed. Petrograd forces, workers' militias 20,000, workers' militia allegiance, Mensheviks, moderate, Bolsheviks, moderates, moderate, independent, moderate, city militia 20,000, city allegiance, Mensheviks, weak, cadets, moderators, weak, independence, weak. So the SRs have a, no, no, the cadets have a moderate allegiance, but the city militia garrison allegiance mentions is powering alright. Foreign relations. Yeah, the Wizard one, I just want to sign the armistice as fast as possible. So if I have to screw over 10 tons just to keep the pre 1914 borders over the 1918 borders, I will do it. Let's go towards economy. The final one before we go read this block of tests and get going. Alright. Industrial production, military 50%, civilian goods 45%, agricultural equipment 1%, capital goods 3. Alright. Total industrial production as of 1960. Oh, so this is like 1 year before things hit the fan basically, or goes to hell basically. Military usage 40%, civilian usage 60%. We could increase the military usage to 50% and we could decrease the civilian one to 50% just to have it even, or we could just increase the military usage to 60% and lower it, then the civilians usage to 40%. Total transport capacity 140 million tons per year. Agriculture 134 million tons per year. So, food sold to cities and towns will be 8.08%. So that we had to increase this. The 8% has to go a lot higher. But the production has to go a lot higher to prevent the military from overshadowing the cities and the towns. Now moving on to land reform, no policy. Let's keep it that way till we get some things fixed first. Land reform policies, financial debt, blah blah blah. We have 65 days and 4 days, 49. Yes, probably was inherited from the Tsardom, from the Russian Empire, which was abolished. Alright, let's get into the test. Alright, let me see how best I can do my voice. In general, people do not see events concretely, solely. They think more in words and in clearly imagined pictures, and they have absolutely no idea what revolution is. Of those many millions of causes which have come to give it its present form, and they are therefore inclined to exaggerate the importance in the progress of the revolution, of their personality, and of the attitude which they, their friends, and co-thinkers will take up in this enormous upheaval, and of course they are absolutely incapable of understanding how powerless is any individual, whatever his intelligence and experience, in this whirlpool of hundreds of thousands of forces which have been put into motion by the upheaval. They do not understand that once such a great natural phenomenon has begun, such as an earthquake or rather such as a typhoon, separate individuals are powerless to exercise any kind of influence on the course of events. A party perhaps can do something far less than is usually thought, and on the surface of the oncoming waves, its influence may perhaps be very slightly noticeable, but several small aggregations may aggregations forming a fairly large mass are undoubtedly powerless, and their powers are certainly nil. Peter Spotkin, the Russian Revolution, and the Soviet government 1919. This is before the Civil War ended. The Civil War will be ending in 1921, and the Soviet Union doesn't get itself established in 1922. For more information on the politics of the provision of overseas, the library page on the top left, if this is your first time playing game, it's recommended you later this some of this information. Difficult starting resources and the alright, let's see. Library. I wasn't about to do this, to be honest. But here we go. Provisional government. The provisional government. With the application of the Tsar power in Russia has been transferred to the provisional government, comprised primarily of liberal members of the Duma and led by Prince Georgy Lvov. A reformist noble, the government has already been recognized by the powers of the Entente. The leaders of the provisional government see its roles as continuing to persecute the war, maintaining its stability until an elected constituent assembly is ready to decide Russia's final form of government. Alright, we already know what they are. So let's go to the Petrograd Soviet. Petrograd Soviet. The Petrograd Soviet of Workers and Soldiers Deputies is an elected council comprised of representatives of workers and soldiers throughout the city. Organized in the wake of the general strike at the breakdown of the established order, it harkens back to the Petrograd Soviet of 1905, which functioned as an activity government in the city during the revolution of that year. The leaders of the Soviet were mostly social democrats and SR intellectuals, who organized an executive committee and elected the Menshevik Nikolai C.E. as the chairman. They see his role as acting as a watchdog over the provisional government, exerting its authority insofar as it does not contradict the directives of the Soviet. Yeah, we know the chairman is CE, he is the Menshevik and those stuff. Let's go by demographics. Demographic groups. Peasants, the largest demographic in Russia. Peasants are subsistence farmers who were largely serfs before the emancipation of Tsar Alexander II and still tied to the traditional communes. They are a majority of Russia's population, but obviously have very little presence in the city. Alright, where were we? Alright, so there are a majority of Russia's population, but the city has obviously very little presence in the city. Working class, the urban working class, blue-collar workers in the factories, workshops, mines, and the like, most are socialists, supporting either the Bolsheviks, the Mensheviks, or the SRs. Around 10 to 20% nationally, much increased due to the war, but much larger portion in Petrograd, middle class, urban traders and merchants, bureaucrats, professionals, and the intelligentsia, at most 10% of the population. But more common in Petrograd, soldiers. There are nearly 10 million men who serve in the armies and fleets. Most of them were conscripted from the peasantry. Minor nationalities, at the last census, non-Russian speaking made up a majority of the population of the party. The largest non-minority of the group are the Ukrainians. Oh well, here is the population by native languages of the 1897 census. Russian 44.31, Ukrainian 17.81, Polish. Okay, so Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish are the third largest groups, and we have Belarusian, Jewish, Kyrgyz, Kazakh, Tatar, German, Latvian, Bashkir, Lithuanian, Armenian, Romanian, Moldovan, Estonian, Sardic, Chuvash, Georgian, Uzbek. Now move towards the Party section. Major parties: Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, aka the Mensheviks, the minority faction of the RSDLP. The Mensheviks emerged from party splits, reunifications, and forced splits in the 1900s. It is, in fact, a larger party seeking to organize a mass party among the working class. Social Democratic Party based on the teachings of Karl Marx. The party argues that the current revolution is the bourgeoisie revolution, the task of socialists to achieve a democratic republic and gain political and economic rights for workers. The Mensheviks are deeply divided on their attitudes towards the war and participation in a bourgeoisie government. Moving on, it will be the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, Bolsheviks. Basically, you know who these people are. So, the majority faction of the RSDLP, in fact, a small party credible Vladimir Lenin's arguments in the various RSDLP congresses. The Bolsheviks are seen as more radical as they're like more disciplined, but they're more part of disciplined revolutionaries, right? Moving on. Party for Socialist Revolutionaries, the SR. Finally, we get to know what SR means because I honestly didn't know what it meant. The SRs are based in the Russian ideology of Narodism. I don't know what Narodism is. I had to research that. This, oh well, or populism, which is an agrarian socialism. Interesting. So we have communism, socialism, and the farmers are already making their own socialism. That's crazy. The sees the traditional Russian village, the mayor, as the basis of a future socialist society. Their support is the strongest in the peasantry, and with the association support among the workers as well. The SRs are deeply divided between the left and the right wing and the right wings based on their attitudes towards the war and participation in the government. Constitutional Democratic Party. Okay, I had to stop sounding like if I was speaking German or Russian right now because that accent just doesn't come. Anyways, Constitutional Democratic Party, the cadets or cadets. The cadets were formerly on the left of the political spectrum, but they have moved on to the center right following the revolution. They are a liberal party whose goal is to establish a democratic republic or constitutional monarchy by moderate social reform while winning the war. They consider themselves a party of representing all Russian society who are predominantly based in the middle class. Basically, just get the cadets out of the government because right now what I have as a plan is just there's no compromise with the nobility. If you know Russian history, the nobility has to go, like very badly has to go. And with other parties, popular socials and Trudovics were rooted in the same narodist ideology as the SRs, who argued for a non-revolutionary part of socialism. Alexander Kerensky is the most well-known Trudovic. Conservatives have been largely marginalized since the February Revolution. The Octobers are a conservative liberal faction that supports constitutional monarchy, much more radical, where the Union of the Russian People and Black Hunters, extremists, nationalists, and anti-Semitic groups that were suppressed following the February Revolution. Then we have the anarchists. Basically, you don't want to be associated with them because you will not get anything done. The right anarchists are not a formally organized party, but they are parallel among some of the workers. They are the most rational group and seek to replace the provisional government with a federation of free Soviets. I have no clue how that's gonna go, but anyways. There are many minority nationality parties based in the Empire's various nationalities. Some are autonomous versions of world parties, such as the Ukrainian SSR, Social Democrats, or the Ottomans. What I want to prevent is the civil war that made us lose Finland and made us lose the Baltics, Poland, in other areas. I want to prevent the splitting of the empire as far as possible as I can. Anyways, okay, social democrats are others are autonomous national movements after having national level influences such as the Kazakh Alaj Party or the Azeri Musawa Party, which pretty sure the Kazakh Alaj Party is probably for Kazakhstan independence or autonomy, but about the Azeri Party, I will know that. Alright, let's go toward economics. I don't have a major in that, so I don't know much. Anyways, industrial production, military 50%, civilian goods 45%, agricultural equipment. Man, this sucks. We really do need to get the agricultural equipment much higher, to be honest, than transportation. The capital goals is slow hell. Total production of total production as of 1960 100%. The railways already know that. Yeah, where we did the full consumption 145 million, we're producing 134 million, so we're having a deficit basically. Yeah, we're having a deficit, but so I had to get it to 200, 300 million production of agriculture because we're having a deficit. I already have a surplus and a deficit, so the budget balance is zero, so we're broke basically, and we're having two deaths. We have a long-term domestic death of 65 and foreign death of 49. But at least we're not the Ottomans who are having it much worse. So I go to paramilitary groups. And after paramilitary groups, we have finally the internal fashion style of the recent Russian history. Like all paramilitary groups, alright. Armies and fronts, I already did. Yeah, I already went over that. So they be internal factions. Social pages. Yeah. Let's see. Social Patriots, a successful group of Menshevik Alliance social democrats actively, god fucking damn it, why does the word just doesn't come? Oh well, support the war and the cause of the Allied patriotism before the revolution. Venerable Social Democrat Georgy Plek- Plekhanov leads a faction called Unity, a misleading pro-war grouping. They're weak, but they have like a medium descent. Might as well get medium strength and low descent for them. They might be useful. Revolution Defenders. Man, I'm gonna butcher these names very badly. Ideology defined by Irakli Serestli and Siberia's Simmerwaldis. The revolutionary defenders only support a defensive war to protect against the revolution while calling the internal proletariat to rise up. Rise up, ladies and gentlemen, and let's blow down the government in the middle of a world war. Well, there isn't a world war yet because America hasn't joined and this is like before that. Alright. Enforce the powers of set a general peace without any sanctions or indemnities. Basically, just force a debt, I believe, or force something to the losing party. When the proletariat Germany rise up, they say that the war is still necessary to defend against it. Yeah, they will rise up in the, what was it? The Spartacist Revolution, which failed very badly. Anyways, the international Spanish social democracy case at the cause of the war is primarily French and British imperialism. Man, I mean, sure, the imperialism was going around during this time prior to the war, but it was literally just Hitler was just caused because Austria just wanted to punish Serbia, and they got a blank check by Germany, and obviously after Serbia, after the Austro-Hungarian Empire succeeded, the blame obviously fell on Germany. Alright, primarily, and Russian workers and peasants have no patience time for Western or Russian capitalists are willing to accept a separate peace if it means a loss of territory. So basically, what happened after World War One, when Russia lost the Baltics and they lost Poland, and they didn't lose the Caucasus. They didn't lose the Caucasus or the Turkestan region, which I forgot whatever it has another name, but I forgot their name. Okay, let's go by timeline of recent Russian history. Okay, let's see. Starting now. Timeline of recent Russian history. 1861, Tsar Alexander II decrees the emancipation of the serfs. However, the former serfs are still ridden by death and poverty, as they had to pay redemption taxes to buy their freedom for nobles. So basically, they were screwed over. Even if they were free, they were screwed over. 1860s, 1870s. The ideology of narodism or populism is developed from various strands of non-Marxist socialism. Anarchist thought decided the Russian peasants as the protagonists of the future revolution, in contrast to Marxism, which is the urban proletariat as the most revolutionary class. The adherents of Narodism launched a movement to go to the people, go into the countryside, spread revolutionary ideology. This movement failed utterly. Man, that was honest. I mean, they sure failed. It seems like they didn't now have some strong figurehead for the Narodism movement. Our rebels moved to 1879. 1879, People's Will is formed, a secretive group of narrow nicks aiming towards the use direct action to overthrow the Tsar. Increasingly, the narrow ticks turn to terrorism and assassinations as a way to spread the revolutionary message. Man, such a way to go, but I don't condone terrorism, and this is such a stupid way to do this, honestly. Man, I know they were desperate, but they should never resort to terrorism or assassinations. That literally makes them lose support in the public eye. 1881, People's Will assassinate Tsar Alexander II. Now, Tsar Alexander, I didn't know Tsar Alexander II was assassinated. I thought he died of old age. I know Tsar Alexander III goes, think like his cars got blown over in the 1880, 18, his cars got blown over in 1894 or something like that. Oh well, different stars I suppose and confuse the history. Yeah, he Tsar Alexander the second, the third. Well, Tsar Alexander the third is basically a conservative of the old ways, returning to orthodoxy, autocracy, and nationality. 1894, Tsar Alexander the third passes away at the age of 49, and Tsar Nicholas II takes the throne at the age of 26. Soon after he marries Alexandra, who was originally a German princess. She is not liked by the Russian people. I can see why. 1897, the first and only census of the Russian Empire was taken, recording over a total of 195, I think 125 million people. I wonder how much was the population in 1810 had they taken another census, but oh well. 1898, the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, or the RSDLP, is formed in an attempt to unite all revolutionary Marxist forces in Russia. I mean, it kind of fails because that did not succeed. Anyways, 1902, the Socialist Revolutionaries of the SRs formed, uniting various groups of Nicks and agrarian socialists. 1903, at the Second Congress of the RSDLP, the division between the posters of the Mensheviks develops. Basically, there's no coming back. Vladimir Lenin and Julius Martov clash over various ideological question. 1904, the Russo-Japanese one begins due to imperialist competition over northeastern China. Yeah, Russia lost the war, and man, this thing was not good. 1905, the Russo-Japanese War ends in major defeat for Russia, largely due to the privations and defeats of the war. The revolution. The Revolution 1905 rose starting with a bloody Sunday massacre. Man, that was not a good way to go for the imperialists. In St. Petersburg, in response to the revolution, the Tsar issues the October Manifesto proclaiming some form of constitutional government for Russia and the creation of a Duma or a national legislature. The Constitutional Democratic Party candidates were formed to run over the Duma. 1906, 1907, the first and second Dumas were held based on elections by biased voting rules, despite the electoral system favoring the wealthy, liberal, and socialist parties comprised a majority of the members. The second Duma ends with a coup by the Prime Minister Stolypin, which changed voting rules, creating a much more conservative Duma. 1906, Stolypin reforms began breaking up the traditional agrarian communes and creating private land ownership that goes to improve agricultural productivity. 1900s. Why does well this doesn't really doesn't have a date? Oh well. Come on, hold on. When should you say Gregory basically Rasputin graced acquainted with the royal family in 1906 or 1907, whenever that happened? Well, Grigory Rasputin becomes acquainted with the imperial family, becomes a strong influence on Empress Alexandra. I'm sure that won't come by then later, but oh well. 1914, the Great War begins with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria in Sarajevo, and the Austrian declaration of war on Serbia, leading to a cascading series of war, declaration of mobilization to encompass all of war, basically a powder keg that was just waiting to explode, just exploded and changed the European landscape forever. The two sides are France, Britain, and Russia. The central powers which are Germany, Austria, and Turkey. Well, it will be Austria-Hungary, but oh well. And other countries on both sides. The war goes terribly for Russia. I mean, it does. Like, the army mobilization team was just looking like it was just coming out of the 1871 Prussian Franco-Prussian War, something like that. 1850s, a similar war conference is held in Switzerland, bringing together a group of anti-socialists, including many Russian exiles, such as Lenin, to draft a statement against the war. The Russian Empire faces a series of military defeats, culminating in the Great Retreat from all of Poland. That was a bad idea. What the Russian Empire should have done was just tugging like the Western Front. 1960, the Brusilov offensive is the 1916 Brusilov offensive is literally what obliterates the Austrian army out of commission till the end of the war. Obviously, the army still exists, but it's so damaged that it's not going to be fighting like it was before 1916. Okay, the Brusilov offensive is the most successful Russian operation in the war, leading to advances against Austria before stalling out, despite successes, millions of people killed are taken by Russia in December as putting as a citizen by a group of nationalist nobles. We exit the library and let's call this part 1 out of 2 because I really just don't want to film right now.